and it's titled Islands and Landmarks. It's all about how our islands are put together and how we're using them and what we're going to do with them in the future. So we have a few people up here on stage to talk about the different parts of it. We have Rosie Rappaport, I can't actually say her name, and she's our senior art director on the team for both EverQuest Next and Landmark. We have Darren McPherson, who is our lead designer for EverQuest Next and Landmark. And then we have Steve Blue, who's the technical director for both EverQuest Next and Landmark. And I'll talk about all the goodness that there's in the
All right. So this is as Terry said, we're going to talk about some of the upcoming things for Islands. I don't know. I know we've announced a number of things that are coming, but this would be pretty exciting for those who are playing Landmark, as a lot of things are going to change. So let's move forward with that. So our islands right now are where you actually play the game. There are multiple servers, and each one of those has 50 islands on it. Each one of those is quite expansive. One of the things that we really want to do in Landmark is embrace this open world building. And one of our other major tenets was exploration. We've always been committed to having this fully 3D world. And by fully 3D, we mean that you're not just playing on a set, as you do in most games, but there's actually depth under the world. If you dig, you will find other stuff down there. So we are moving forward with our goals. So the largest change that's upcoming soon is going to be layers. So right now we have a single layer with the first layer of caverns, but we're going to have 5 layers beneath each island. Each one of these layers will have its own biome now. So you guys are aware of what biomes are. Some of the islands that you call home might be a mixture of arid desert and tundra, for instance, or jungle and forest, old-growth forest. And each one of the layers will have its own underground biome with specific underground environments like underground desert, underground jungle, underground forest. And most of these are analogous to the surface biomes of the not all of them are. You've seen right now crystal caverns. Eventually there'll be a volcanic underground biome, and you'll find more and more of these things as we continue to push forward. So if you, and the underground biome that is there is independent of what is on the surface, which is pretty cool. So you could be in a desert, you could be in a shallow desert cave, and you could dig down a little bit, and suddenly you're in an underground jungle. And so it doesn't matter, as you see in this graphic, it doesn't matter what's above it. It can be completely, what is below it is completely independent. So the biome map, I mentioned the biome map, that's going to be something that you, the community, have to explore and find out, determine which island, whether you be on Bluff or any of the other specific island names, you'll have to figure out what those are. Those are unique per island, but each individual island per server has the same biome. So if you guys, as a community, map out Bluff, for instance, you'll know exactly what Bluff is on all the other servers. So you as a grand community can figure this out. And that will matter. Why does it matter? Well, because
go back.
just not forwarding. Yes, exactly. So this doesn't change. You'll want to know where these biomes are because the things that you want and need will be pushed underground. So not everything will be, but right now each one of our islands is all of our islands are divided into tier 1 to 5. And you can be on a tier 1 island and you'll find predominantly tier 1 resources, or you can go to another island and find those. In the future, all islands will have tier 1 on the surface, and there will be no notion of a tiered island anymore. So, if you are playing on a specific tier 5, tier 4 island right now, that will not be the case. That island will lose that little label, the little parenthesis label. At the end of that, it will just be that name. And if you want tier 5 or tier 4 materials, where do you think you have to go? Down, okay? So you're going to want to know this because we are going to be extending our, right now we do a little bit of this. If you need specific plants, for instance, or you need specific trees, you have to go to the biome that houses those. And we're going to be expanding that to metals and to stone and different things. So if you want, for example, to find obsidian, well, you've got to find a tier 4, tier 5 underground desert. And knowing what that biome is and what islands have those biomes and those specific tiers is going to matter to you. So as a community, we really hope that we'll band together and find out what those are, because it's really going to matter to you. So I'm clearly not pushing through these very well. So I just get so excited talking that I don't walk through these. So I've come up with all sorts of cool animations for this, so I can probably click through them. So the next big expansion is caves. And so you've already got our first layer of caverns, and each one of those caverns has a number of items in it that you can find. You can find plants, you can find treasure chests. Our plan is to expand that with many, many, many more treasure chests with a lot more items. Some of the things that you'll be hearing today about the combat of landmark, I think that's today at 6 o'clock, maybe a little later. But we're gonna have to distribute lots and lots of items to you in landmark, and these underground chests and the NPCs that you're going to find underground, monsters, are going to be the source for a lot of those things. So really, you're going to have to go and explore. If you don't want to explore, you're going to have to trade something for those items. So we also want to expand the notion of what our caverns are. Right now, our caverns are small. We're taking lots of steps to make those larger, have some large sets of caverns that allow you to have much bigger things in them, like including structures, so that you can walk down, you can find something that, as in this little image here, there's a structure underneath that you can explore that has NPCs in it, monsters and treasures, and we really want this to be a fun experience for you to come and explore. So we also really have a desire to retain the exploration throughout the years that Landmark will be around. And one of the ways that we do that is this notion of our goal is evergreen content. And so we need to make sure that, if you've been playing Landmark for 5 years, there's still stuff for you to explore. And one of the ways that we do this and that we retain freshness in the world is through shuffling. So underground, in those tiers, those cavern layouts will shuffle periodically. Now, how often that happens is something that we're still debating, but we really want you to be able to log in every night and have new places to discover new things, to find new ruins, to find new treasure chests, and other things to find. We don't want that to be the same static experience it is in those other games. Exploration, we want to be profound, and we want that to mean something to you. And we really want you to be able to explore to your heart's content. And the cameras change the biomes will not. So on your particular island, Tier 5 will always retain its biome map, although just the cameras and the content will change for you. So the world is about to get much, much larger, and we really wanted you to, with the notion that you're going to be having to go to Tier 5 and find things. How fun is it to take your pick and dig down, even to the first layer of caverns right now? Super fun, right? Okay, so we can all agree it's not awesome, and we're doing things to make that more entertaining. Through the use of pulverizing, it becomes more tolerable, but we really want to allow you to expand that experience. And so what we're going to be doing is adding problems. So right now, each island has a portal spire, a big spire in the middle of the island, and we're going to be adding portal crystals around the entire area. So these form a ley line network. You can use this network to travel around the world. It will cost you to do this, and this will allow you to explore not only the surface but underground, because these portal crystals will be underground as well. So we really want you to be able to explore, but we don't want it to take an inordinate amount of time to get down to the places that you need to go. The fun of going to Tier 5 should be that you can spend time in Tier 5, not have to spend your whole evening trying to get down to Tier 5. Which is definitely good. So we have there's not a lot for me to say, aside from we think it's going to be really fun as we expand these islands, we make these tiers bigger, more meaningful places to you, and we think you'll really enjoy it. So I'll pass it off to Rosie, who's going to talk about how we make this crazy stuff.
That's right. So I'm just going to run through the art production. Our goal when we were trying to figure out how we were going to do this is we have to be able to generate islands quickly as needed, but we don't want them to have that bland look that they can get when they're procedurally put together. So our goal was to make them look handcrafted. The way that we achieved it, the steps of the production are we concept it so we know exactly what our goals are for the look and feel. And then we create all of the materials and props by hand. And then we put them together in compositions so that we don't, I mean, one of the problems I think with procedural generation is that it's just placing things randomly. So we can actually compose artistically the way that these copses and trees are going to grow together, and that makes them look much more natural and crafted. And then we use procedural, we procedurally assemble them to put them all together.
I can speak a little bit about that procedural part of it. It's actually quite an interesting problem, and some of those things you probably noticed, like the various bugs that we've had with it, we still have to use it with like a wall of trees. It's a very complicated algorithm that we can make when we procedurally generate positions for all these plants and trees on an island. We have to run through every single place that they can go, check to see who will fit there. Is it following the rules that the artist has laid out? And then it generates these nodes that say there's a possibility that this thing can spawn here because we don't want it to always be in the same place. So it generates millions of these nodes that get loaded on the servers, so that when the server comes up, it can randomly populate all those things. And then we went and put in the caves, and everything got a lot worse. Because now you may have a group of, underground flora or whatever that needs to be in a certain pattern in one of these groups that they specified. Well, what if it doesn't fit? What if one of the pieces of that group doesn't fit? Or, a certain orientation on a wall doesn't fit because it would protrude into another wall. So there's actually a lot of computation that goes into this. And for those of you that were at the previous panel this morning, we actually have to use some distributed network tools to make that run fast enough so it doesn't take days for us to generate this information. It's actually quite complicated.
A lot of problem solving. So I'm going to run a little bit through the steps that we go through. The first step is the biome concept. We get the terrain contour, the look and feel concept, and then the individual props. Okay, so the terrain contour is just, it's done by the concept artist, but it shows from the ocean to the high mountains what the objective is usually. And here's another example. So you can see that the biome includes everything from the ocean to the mountains. So that all has to be figured out beforehand so that the tech artists have this goal to work towards. And then they also work on these look and feel pieces. And the look and feel pieces include everything that we're going to do. They include the flora, the lighting, the props, especially the trees and the rocks, and the way that the materials are going to look on the ground and be distributed on the ground. So there's the tundra area, you can see like that. Some of those, that wasn't exactly the look that we went for the terrain, because that wasn't quite achievable. And this was an idea from one of the underground houses. Lighting is really, really important. And when I talk about lighting here, I'm talking about the environment lighting, so the sunlight. But when we use the term lighting, that includes the fog, all of the time of day shifts, and many, many, many factors that go into lighting to do with exposure and brightness of the sun. And there's many, many different variables that go together to create the lighting. So it's extremely important to pre-plan. And that way, it's much faster to create this concept art than it is to actually go in there and start working with the variables and the tools. So if they have something to look at and to achieve, it makes the process much faster. Another thing that we look very heavily at is silhouette, because the silhouettes are what you take in first, is the overall look, and it's a very broad place to start for a lot of these shapes, especially the trees. It's really, really important to look at that, and we just do that with black and white a lot of times because it's so fast, and it makes the artist focus especially on the silhouette. It sort of restricts them, but it forces them to look at that, and then we can all look at it and decide if that's the correct goal that we want to go for. And then they also, after the look and feel pieces and the silhouette pieces are done, the concept artist can start digging in and concepting the individual props that the modelers are then going to make. And there's another example. Now, oftentimes the modelers can do their own concept art, so there's a lot of crossover there. So then moving on to the 3D modelers, the 3D modelers also make materials. So they make the materials and they look at them on lots of different shapes, and they have to look at them in the game and make sure that they go across the terrain properly and that they look really good in different lighting conditions. And they do this with all of the different ores and terrain materials and check the blending. And then with the architectural materials, it's also important that they work with those materials so that they can make sure that they're aligning properly and that they're good to build with. And then according to that concept art, they start building out the different props. And the trees are, we call them props, even though they're enormous. And oftentimes they're made modularly in Maya so that they can be recombined to make other props quickly when that's necessary. So you can see here that these trees are individual pieces, and then they're combined with those roots. And then everything is starting to be tested in scenes, because that's vitally important for the environment artists to remember. We're making scenes. We don't have prop artists and material artists. Everybody is working towards scenes, and that's our ultimate goal. And then, as I was talking about, they do the prop placement. They're composing these plants together in clusters, and not just plants, but probably rocks and here surrounding the plants, so that they can get a more natural look and feel to the way that they go together.
Something that's really interesting about prop placement, getting back that a little bit, is that in the engineering department, you had to kind of satisfy two different sets of requirements. You had the artist who really wanted to be this very aesthetic placement of the trees and the rocks and shrubs, but then at the same time, the designers talking as well. But that tree only show up, 12% of the time, and you only have, there must be a minimum of 4 of them in the at the same time, and a maximum of this many. So it made it actually very interesting to try and solve both sets of problems at the same time. We're pretty good.
Yeah, we harassed Steve.
It was fun.
And then you can see here a scene that's been put together to be tested with all of the props and the materials on the ground, and we're starting to look at the lighting. Now the lighting, as I was saying, has to be set up for all the different times of day. And what we found was best was to work on key times of day. So we work on noon, sunset, sunrise, and nighttime. And then it blends in between the two.
You do seasons?
Well, not currently, but we were showing previously the deciduous forest. We don't have dynamic seasons yet. And then what we do is we have these, we call them maps, and they are grayscale maps that determine the placement of they determine everything, the shape, the contour of the terrain, the placement of the materials, and anything you can think of. These different maps can be combined, and that's what's really nice about them, is they can be combined in different ways and with different values to create an infinite number of shapes. So we're going to show a video here.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the trick. That's the trick.
Okay. It showed okay, there we go. So this is showing the introduction of the various maps and how they're affecting the contour of the terrain and the detail of the terrain and the shape of the island. And then we look a little bit about how they can, all of these values and different maps can be interchanged to get so much variety that we need.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, during
You would take a lot of falling damage.
Don't talk about the exhaust.
Can we have
Sure. Rendering might be a little
yes.
All right, and so now it's time. You guys hear me? Yeah, there it is. So now it's time for questions. So if you'd like to, just line up right over here, and we'll take the questions one at a time. I don't think you're going to be first this time. You were a little slower. Well, it was very nice of you. So, come on up.
So currently, most of the islands are very, very mountainous. Are we planning plans for more flatlands, maybe savannas or meadows or areas
Absolutely.
like that?
Yeah, we definitely want to be adding more biomes, and the terrain should be appropriate for whatever those biomes are.
What is the main reason for your asking after you said I'm not curious?
I like to build on mountaintops, so I do a lot of building on mountaintops, but sometimes the things I build require a little bit more flat space.
Well,
And I don't like chopping off the top of the mountain. I like to build with the terrain that's around it.
I was going to say, if there were better chopping off tools, maybe.
Well, no, I'm fine technically doing it. I just don't like destroying the landscape to build what I want to build.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Very harmonious.
Yes.
Yes, there's a lot of us.
Hi there, folks. I was wondering about, you talked a little bit about ruins and stuff underground. I was wondering if those points of interest are going to be something that players are actually going to be able to help the team build up and generate parts of it that the team will then be able to utilize and, you know, kind of procedurally insert in the reshuffle case when they, you know, every time it's reshuffled.
That is the plan, yes.
I was waiting for the. That's a great idea.
No, that is a great idea. We already had it. No, we're definitely going to do that. We definitely want to integrate your stuff into the game so you go, oh, there's my ruin. How cool is that? Now, because of reshuffling, you may not see that very often.
That gets into issues with the whole dungeon master tools as well, eventually. Longer term.
And I can easily see there being competitions and things like that for that very sort of
Yeah.
So, your question.
I was wondering also if there's going to be a little bit more kind of width between the biomes. Right now there's a lot of kind of a sharp transition from one biome to another. I was wondering what the plan is going forward for making that a little bit more gradual.
So there's a couple issues there. I mean, we can only make it transition. What is your main goal in wanting to transition more slowly? I guess would be a good question.
For the most part, it's that it gives it more a sense of a living and breathing world. When I see one biome butted right up on another.
Sometimes when there's a sharp transition like that, it's probably just a bug. Because we did try to actually have space where it transitions. The other thing that we can do is actually add intermediate biomes in between, where you actually have a distinct biome that is a strip between the two of them. But that's a little bit. It takes a little more time to put that together.
Absolutely.
It's
I mean,
possible.
it's almost another biome of its own at that point, having something that's kind of in between the two.
What they should do.
Yeah. Great questions.
This question, because you said we covered shift, I was wondering if there's ever any option for underground rooms.
That's a good question. Underground claims. So we have some competing goals there because we really want to have underground claims. We also want to preserve underground space for exploration. So we hope to meet somewhere in the middle and have some limited amount of those claims, or have islands perhaps where you can claim underground. That obviously the reshuffling would interfere with all of that stuff. So it's something we're still talking about.
So presumably you mean deep underground, because you can do underground
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now if you just, you know.
Under.
Clay on the ground and deep down.
Yeah.
Clay something already underground.
But then nobody will see what you got. They happen
Unless
to.
they go look.
Yeah.
Might be kind of hard.
Exploring.
Yeah. So
Three dimensions are big.
3 dimensions are pretty big.